Shu Qian glared at him with a face full of bad luck. Why wasn't this mentioned in the confession? Shu Qian questioned. Shu Shiping said indifferently, it's just a trivial matter. What's there to talk about? Uncle Shu cursed. It's all that guy surnamed Lu's fault. He handed me a pot of Osmanthus honey at that time. You know your uncle's drinking capacity is off the charts. I got a bit too greedy and drank a few more sips, so I didn't pay much attention. I'd have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Shu Qian was so pissed off by this useless teammate that he almost spat out blood. If this was in the file, he could have figured out the truth long ago. Why waste so many brain cells? At this moment, Shu Xingnian, who was listening aside, hit the nail on the head. So, the guy surnamed Lu that Dad mentioned is most likely the one trying to screw Dad over. Only then did Shu Shiping suddenly realize. Suddenly, he looked at the people in the family and remembered a past he'd rather forget. It's all my fault for being so muddle-headed. I almost got the whole family in trouble. Shu Shiping's voice was full of guilt. Qian, back then, your dad and I fought back in the mountain sea battle. We said we'd survive together and rise to prominence together. I survived, but your dad died in the battle. At that time, I thought that if I wanted to live a better life, I had to change my way of living. I couldn't be a cannon fodder anymore, so I sent my son to study and chose to let you practice martial arts. In fact, I still had some selfish motives. Aunt rolled her eyes. Yeah, your heart has leaned so far towards your nephew. Shu Qian instinctively replied. Aunt, what you mean is, Erlang isn't your own? Aunt was so angry that she slapped the table. You little rascal, what's your intention in saying such things? Uncle Shu's scalp tingled. Enough, I just managed to scrape through with my life. Why do I have to listen to you two arguing? Everyone lowered their heads to eat. When it came to the mountain sea battle, Shu Qian had some impression. The world is vast. The Great Feng Dynasty dominates the Central Plains, claiming to be the legitimate ruler of the world. The Great Feng Dynasty builds its nation with martial arts, and governs with Confucianism. At its peak, all nations paid tribute. Until now, the dynasty has endured for 600 years. 20 years ago, the Great Feng Dynasty joined hands with the Western region's countries to fight against the Northern Grass Barbarians and the Southwestern Barbarians at Shanhaiguan. All parties deployed 1 million soldiers. The war only lasted half a year from start to finish. It was one of the most tragic wars in history, known as the Mountain Sea Battle. Shu Qian's father died in that war. At this moment, the little kid who ran back because of hunger said something that almost made Aunt pass out on the spot. Mommy, why do we live in a dark house? We can't even get enough to eat every day. Everyone was speechless. The little kid actually took the prison cell for a dark house. Shu Shiping said guiltily. It's Dad who did something wrong. The little kid said, oh, and then said, I woke up hungry yesterday, caught a bug, and then... He made a gesture to show what it was like. Aunt felt extremely. Did you eat it? But the little kid continued. Later, I heard Mom's stomach growling, so I stuffed it into Mom's mouth. Mom ate it really fast. At this moment, these words kept echoing in Aunt's mind. Stuffed it into Mom's mouth. Mom ate it really fast. Aunt directly spat out a mouthful. Then, there was only the sound of the little kid being beaten and howling. How crazy could an ancient person get because of a modern chemistry knowledge? The star Gazing Tower, the tallest building in the capital of the Great Feng Dynasty, is the office of the Bureau of Astronomy. A girl in a yellow dress climbed up with light steps. When she passed the 7th floor, she heard a noisy commotion coming from the alchemy room. A group of alchemists in white robes were arguing red in the face. Why did it fail again? The steps are so simple. I've said it. It must be the wrong dosage of salt. I think it's the water. It's the fire. I saw senior brother WAN burn the salt to waste just now. It's too hard. The alchemy spell to turn salt into silver is too difficult. I can't do it. The girl in the yellow dress named Siwei twitched the corners of her mouth. These people were still trying to make fake silver. After the tax silver case was solved, His Majesty thought the fake silver was extremely powerful and was quite interested, so he ordered the Bureau of Astronomy to make fake silver. So the alchemists of the Bureau of Astronomy started their working jobs, devoting themselves to the 996 blessing, day and night. From 2 days ago until now, they kept failing but still kept trying, and kept trying but still kept failing. At this time, someone noticed Siwei passing by. Siwei's heart instantly sank. Then, Siwei was carried into the alchemy room. Junior sister Siwei, come and help me take a look. Is there something wrong with the steps? You're the only one who successfully made fake silver. Siwei looked at the materials on the table and felt so tired. The process her senior brothers used was fine. She had made fake silver in the Shu mansion in the same way, but later, she secretly tried to make it again, and failed. Senior brothers, don't be impatient. This is an alchemy technique passed down from ancient times. It's profound and obscure. It's not something you can learn right away. It needs to be taught in a simple and profound way to take root. I'll teach you all a formula. I hope senior brothers will remember it well. A group of alchemy fanatics assumed a listening posture. Siwei took a deep breath and spat out all the various chemistry terms that Shu Qian had said back then. The alchemy fanatics were completely confused. What does this formula mean? I can understand every word, but when they're put together, I'm lost. Siwei laughed awkwardly twice. She thought to herself, who knows what this crap is? Anyway, it was that guy Shu Qian who said it, a senior brother in white robe sighed. What a genius! The person who wrote this formula is truly a genius in alchemy. Junior assisted Siwei. Who taught you this formula? Siwei thought. Good question. I can shift the blame now. That person is Shu Qian, a 7th rank green, robed official in the Saber, controlling battalion, and the nephew of Shu Tingji. Just go find him. Hearing that it was a martial artist, the white-robed people were unhappy. Joke, our Bureau of Astronomy is full of talented people. Do we need to find an outsider, and a martial artist at that, to make fake silver? It'll be a laughing stock if word gets out. Due to different cultivation systems, a very interesting chain of contempt has formed. Taoism looks down on Buddhism, and Buddhism looks down on Taoism in return. Sorcerers look down on witches, witches look down on GU masters, and GU masters look down on sorcerers. Then, Taoism, Buddhism, sorcerers, witches, and GU masters all look down on martial artists. As for Confucianism, sorry to say, in my humble opinion, everyone here is trash, but unfortunately, Confucianism has declined in modern times. The alchemy fanatics continued to pester Siwei. She squeezed out from among the white-robed senior brothers' robes, and continued to climb the stairs. In fact, she didn't understand either. She just wanted to leave this place of trouble as soon as possible. The top of the star-gazing tower is not a normal rock top, but an octagonal platform that coincides with the 8 trigrams. So it's called the 8 trigram platform. At the edge of the 8 trigram platform, a white-robed old man was lying on the table, pinching a wine cup in his hand, and propping his head up with the other hand. He seemed half drunk. Looking at the capital below, the girl in the yellow dress was sensible enough not to disturb. A master usually didn't do his proper job and just liked to sit on the 8 trigram platform, drinking and enjoying the scenery. Shu Qian rested for a day. The next day, he rushed to the Yamen to report. As soon as Shu Qian's figure appeared in Changle County Yamen, everyone was so scared that it was as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Someone pointed at Shu Qian and said tremblingly, "Are you a human or a ghost?" Assistant Magistrate Li noticed the shadow of Shu Qian's head on the ground. He felt slightly relieved and said calmly, "What nonsense are you talking about in the courtroom? Do ghosts have shadows?" Shu Qian thought for a moment, and then said, "Maybe it's a walking corpse." Hearing this, Assistant Magistrate Li rolled his eyes, and was about to faint. Shu Qian quickly cupped his hands and said, "Just kidding. Greetings to the Assistant Magistrate and all my colleagues. I'm out of prison." Assistant Magistrate Li asked, "What's going on?" Shu Qian immediately repeated the matter. Only then did everyone suddenly understand. Shu Qian took out the certificate given by the Jingjiao Prefecture Yamen. Assistant Magistrate Li took it and said, "The roll call is over. Disperse." Several familiar constables immediately came over to offer congratulations. "Congratulations, those who survive a great disaster are bound to have future blessings. You have to treat us. I heard that the brothel on Lingshui Street has bought a batch of new girls. How about going there with us tonight?" Shu Qian's face turned dark. "Treating you to drinks is okay, but do I have to pay for you to sleep with women too? That's going too far." Just as Shu Qian was about to make an excuse that he had no money, suddenly, he stepped on something hard. He looked down, and it turned out to be a piece of broken silver. At this moment, Assistant Magistrate Li came running back, panting. After he caught his breath, he said, "Lao Wang, the county magistrate wants us to go to the inner hall." Lao Wang secretly cursed his bad luck, but still followed Assistant Magistrate Li. Taking this opportunity, Shu Qian quickly picked up the broken silver. Shu Qian asked the Yamen runner beside him in confusion, "The boss doesn't look too good. What happened?" The Yamen runner said helplessly, You were in prison. In the past few days, there was a murder case on Camping Street. A rather wealthy and powerful merchant died. The county magistrate flew into a rage and scolded Constable Wang every day. Shu Qian was puzzled. Just a merchant died. The county magistrate doesn't need to be so angry, right? The Yamen runner said. That merchant has some connection with a certain official in the censorate. Presumably, there's pressure from that side. And this year is the Gengzi year. Gengzi year? Shu Qian realized it was the Capital Review. The Capital Review is the assessment system for officials in the Great Feng Dynasty. It is carried out every 3 years. Officials who fail the assessment will be demoted or even reduced to commoners. Since it concerns their future prospects, it's understandable. And the other party has a connection with the censorate. If there's an impeachment, it's basically all over. At this moment, the door was smashed open with a punch. Then Constable Wang came in, cursing. The person is dead and the culprit has fled. Where can we find them? The Yamen runner beside him quickly went up to comfort him, but Constable Wang just kept sighing. I'm really out of luck today. Not only did I get scolded, but I also lost a qian of silver. Hearing this, Shu Qian hid aside and snickered. So it was you who dropped the money. At this moment, the Yamen runner leaned forward and said in a low voice, Boss, how about finding a scapegoat? Although the voice was low, Shu Qian heard it clearly. Finding a scapegoat meant finding someone to take the blame. Constable Wang thought this wasn't a bad idea, so he ordered, go to the slums in the west of the city now and pick a few old troublemakers who often break the law. Remember, pick those who are a bit older. But at this moment, Shu Qian grabbed the Yamen runner's shoulder and threw him behind. We can't let the murderer get away so easily. The others saw this and quickly stepped forward to hold Shu Qian back. We know your family has just gone through a great disaster, and you're bound to be sensitive to such things. But the boss is being scolded by the county magistrate every day. There's really no other way. But Shu Qian didn't pay any attention. Constable Wang suddenly slapped the table and stood up, staring at Shu Qian. Then tell me how to investigate? Shu Qian suddenly shook off the hands holding his shoulders, posed in a cool way and said, give me the file. After Shu Qian took the file, he started his Shu-style reasoning. The deceased was Zhong Yurue, 51 years old, a wealthy man living on Camping Street. He had a fortune. His first wife died early, and he remarried a woman named Liang who was 20 years younger than him. Zhong Yurue had an only son left by his deceased wife, and no other children. 20 years difference? Shu Qian thought to himself. This is an old cow eating young grass, a case of an old man with a young wife. 4 days ago, Zhong Yurue went to the countryside to collect rent. He rushed back home around 10 o'clock. His wife, who was sleeping in the house, suddenly heard a scream. When she went out to check, Zhong Yurue was already dead in the courtyard. His wife also saw a black shadow climbing over the wall and running away. Shu Qian asked, have you questioned the night patrol soldiers? The Yamen runner beside him said, there were no suspicious people around that night. The capital has 3 city walls. Although there are night patrol soldiers in the outer city, there is no curfew. The city gates are open 24 hours a day. Merchants can enter and exit freely as long as they report in advance and have their certificates. Shu Qian asked again, so how much silver was lost? The Yamen runner was quite speechless. Nothing was lost. The deceased had just come back from collecting rent. What he collected were all broken silver, copper coins, and some grains. How could the thief escape with a large box of silver after killing someone? Shu Qian immediately sensed something was wrong. If I were the thief and had scouted the place, I would definitely choose to steal the next day, not today. Constable Wang calmly blew on his tea and said, so, may I ask Constable Shu, who is the murderer, and where is he? Shu Qian quickly laughed it off. Don't be in a hurry, boss. I saw in the file that there were footprints left on the outer wall of Zhong's residence, right? You inferred from this that the thief climbed over the wall and ran away. So what the young lady said is true. Constable Wang still looked indifferent. What's wrong with that? Shu Qian asked. Why were there footprints left? Constable Wang was getting impatient. Because there is a flower bed by the wall. The thief had to pass by it when climbing over the wall, so there would be footprints on the outer wall. Shu Qian shouted sternly. Then why aren't there any footprints entering the courtyard in the file? Constable Wang was stunned. The Yamen runner beside him came out to smooth things over. Maybe the thief noticed this when coming in, so he didn't leave any marks. But after killing someone, he was in a hurry to escape and left footprints in a rush. Shu Qian closed his eyes. This is the first. If the thief could jump over the flower bed from outside the wall without leaving footprints, with such light-footed skills, then when he escaped, he didn't need to step on the wall for leverage at all. Second, the deceased was killed by a blunt object hitting the back of his head. Why a blunt object? If the murderer was doing this kind of thing, wouldn't it be more straightforward to kill with a sword or a knife? Constable Wang slapped the table and stood up. Hitting the back of the head with a blunt object and killing with one blow indeed shows a murderous intent, but he didn't understand why it was a blunt object, not a sharp weapon. At this moment, Xu Qian's words woke him up. Unless the murderer didn't have a handy weapon at that time. The last point, which I'm more concerned about, is that when the deceased's family members were brought to the county Yamen for interrogation, Zhong Liangsha suddenly fainted because of kneeling for too long. The doctor diagnosed that she was pregnant. The Yamen runners beside him couldn't help but sigh when they heard this, showing pity. Xu Qian got a bit annoyed. You onlookers, just watch quietly. Don't interrupt randomly, okay? Xu Qian coughed twice to interrupt them. Zhong Liangsha is 20 years younger than the deceased. She's been married to the deceased for nearly 10 years. Why is she pregnant just now? Constable Wang was shocked when he heard this. Is there something fishy here? Xu Qian continued. Maybe the child isn't the deceased's at all. Constable Wang's breathing suddenly became heavy. Speak more clearly. Xu Qian took a sip of tea to moisten his throat. Maybe this isn't a burglary case, but a case of murder due to adultery. Zhong Liangsha was having an affair behind her husband's back. The lover is either a man from outside or the deceased's son. The two took advantage of the deceased going out to collect rent, and secretly had a tryst. But who could have expected that the deceased would return early, and caught them red-handed? A conflict broke out between the two sides. So in a fit of anger, the adulterer grabbed a vase or some other blunt object and killed the deceased. Zhong Liangsha and the adulterer hastily dealt with the scene and dragged the deceased to the courtyard, pretending it was a thief breaking into the house to steal. Since the adulterer was going to have a tryst, he must have scouted the place in advance, figured out the pattern of the night, patrolling guards, and that's why he wasn't seen by the patrolling guards. If the thief really wanted money, he wouldn't have chosen to strike that night. Instead, he would have waited for the deceased to exchange the rent, collected silver into banknotes, which could be taken away easily by putting them in his pocket. The story Zhong Liangsha gave just took advantage of the rent collecting situation, leading your thoughts in the direction of the thief seeking money. The constables in the room were dumbfounded. One could figure out the murderer just by looking at the case file. Qian, this isn't a joke. Don't talk nonsense. Captain Wang was still suspicious. Why do you think the adulterer might be the deceased's son? Xu Qian slowly took a sip of tea, and then continued. I have 2 reasons to suspect him. In his statement, Zhong Xiang, the son of the deceased, said that he was checking the accounts in the study that night. Zhong Liangsha was awakened by the scream, which means the noise was extremely loud, but he, a person who was awake, didn't hear a single sound. Is this reasonable? The second point, if no footprints left by the thief in the flower bed when he sneaked in can be found, then this so-called thief is likely non-existent. Based on this speculation, the suspect of the deceased's son is very high, Captain Wang asked. So the footprints on the wall were probably left on purpose to mislead us. Xu Qian nodded and said, just compare them with the boots of the deceased's son to find out. Captain Wang said, even a fool knows not to leave his own footprints. Xu Qian immediately gave a flattering compliment. Chief, you're really a great detective of the great Feng. Then, Captain Wang went to explain the case to Magistrate Xu, but he took all the credit for solving the case himself. Upon hearing this, Magistrate Xu directly snapped back. Don't I know your capabilities? You bunch of useless scoundrels. You're shrewd when it comes to getting benefits, but completely useless when it comes to doing your jobs. Captain Wang was so scared that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He no longer dared to take the credit, and directly confessed that Xu Qian was the one who solved the case. After a long time, the court in the Yamen was set up again. The deceased's second wife and the deceased's son were brought up again. Magistrate Xu angrily slapped the gavel, and said loudly, how did you two kill Zhong Yurui? Confess truthfully. Zhong Xiang shouted that he was wronged. My lord, why such words? How could I, a commoner, kill my own father? Magistrate Xu glared at them. Don't play dumb with me. Magistrate Xu cleared his throat and said, where were you, Zhong Xiang? When the incident happened, I was in the study. Why weren't you in the same bed as your wife? I was checking the accounts. Is there any witness? In the dead of night, where could there be a witness? Magistrate Xu then asked, Zhong Liangsha, I'm asking you, you've been married to Zhong Yurui for 10 years without having a child. Why are you pregnant now? Did you and your son collude to murder your husband? Zhong Liangsha collapsed to the ground. I'm wronged. My body is weak. I've been conditioning it every day in recent years. It was so hard for me to conceive my husband's child. How could my lord wrongly accuse me of murdering my husband just because of this? Xu Qian was speechless, watching from the side. Magistrate Xu, if you interrogate like this, how can you find out the truth? Magistrate Xu slapped the gavel fiercely. You said you saw a black shadow kill someone and then climb over the wall and leave. But why? When the constables searched the flower bed under the wall today, did they find no footprints and no signs of trampled flowers and plants? Zhong Liangsha was left speechless. Zhong Xian beside her said, Magistrate, how could my mother know how the thief sneaked into the house? If your Yaman can't figure it out, you can't shift the blame onto my mother and me. Xu Qian almost spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard this in the hall. Old blood from 1982. What the hell, mother and son? Don't you dare insult these two words, okay? Magistrate Xu was also enraged. He picked up the token and was about to torture the two. Zhong Xian wasn't afraid either. My lord, are you trying to extort a confession by torture? My uncle is a secretary in the Ministry of Rights. Aren't you afraid of being impeached? Magistrate Xu's face immediately fell. What kind of people are those serving as secretaries in the Ministry of Rights? They are self-proclaimed upright censors, crazy dogs that bite anyone they see. They'll impeach whoever they don't like. Thinking of this, Magistrate Xu was angry. A commoner dares to threaten me. Guards, give him 20 strokes of the cane. But he knew that even if Zhong Xian confessed after being beaten, when the case was handed over to the Ministry of Justice, he might still overturn the case with the help of his relative who was a secretary. And then Magistrate Xu might be accused of extorting a confession by torture. At this time, Xu Qian patted a constable on the back. Help me pass a message to Magistrate Xu. Xu Qian, why are you here? Tell Magistrate Xu to adjourn the court for now. I have a good idea. After a long time, Zhong Liangsha was taken to a separate room and locked up. Just as she was feeling uneasy, the door was opened. Xu Qian came in with a pot of tea. Don't be nervous. Just a casual chat. You can call me Officer Xu. Zhong Liangsha was a bit confused. Officer what? Xu Qian poured her a cup of tea. Looking at your jewelry, Zhong Yurue treated you well, right? Actually, I think, at your age, not being able to conceive a child for so many years is mostly Zhong Yurue's problem. Zhong Liangsha became aggrieved. It's all my fault. My belly just isn't it. It took so many years to get pregnant. Xu Qian continued. Did Zhong Yurue often go to brothels? Naturally, he often went. Since ancient times, which noble and powerful people didn't go to brothels? Xu Qian was speechless. This Zhong Liangsha is really tough to deal with. Zhong Yurue was over 50 and still often went to brothels. His sperm must be depleted. Now I'm almost certain that the child in your belly is someone else's. Xu Qian said, I suddenly understand you. Zhong Yurue was over 50 and still went to brothels. Xu Qian sneered. I suddenly understand you. Zhong Yurue is over 50 and still frequents brothels, neglecting you. It's understandable that you cheat, but killing people is wrong. Zhong Liangsha, caught off guard, dropped the teacup in her hand. I don't know what you're talking about, officer. I've read the case file. That Zhong Xian is at least 7 years younger than you. What do you mean, officer? You're saying I'm an old cow chewing on young grass. Zhong Liangsha pretended to be clueless. Xu Qian continued. Zhong Liangsha, you were lonely in your empty room, so you seduced your stepson, committing a shameless and immoral act. That night, you took advantage of Zhong Yurue going to the countryside to collect rent, and had an affair with your stepson. Who knew that Zhong Yurue would return early, and catch you two in the act? The father and son started fighting, and you smashed Zhong Yurue to death with a vase from behind. To cover up your crime, you dragged Zhong Yurue's corpse into the yard, making it look like a robbery. After the murder, Zhong Xian deliberately left footprints on the wall. To confirm your story, Zhong Liangsha slammed the table. I didn't. I'm innocent. Xu Qian looked at her trembling hands and knew that his guess was at least 70 or 80% correct. Aren't you curious how I know so much? Zhong Liangsha was startled. Could Zhong Xian have confessed? That's impossible. Xu Qian pressed his advantage. Don't you think your lover would never confess? Because you thought you had it all perfectly planned. but it's full of holes. Zhongxian only left footprints going out, not coming in. If a thief is good at moving around, they would unleash their potential when escaping, and wouldn't leave any footprints at all. Secondly, Zhong Yurui died from a blunt weapon, not a sharp one. According to the Great Feng law, anyone breaking into a house at night for no reason gets 80 lashes, and the homeowner can kill them if discovered. Tell me, which thief breaks into a house without a weapon? But Zhong Yurui died from a blunt weapon. Thirdly, why is the county Yamen so sure that you killed Zhong Yurui, and not a thief? Because you made a mistake. Zhong Yurui's body had his feet facing the house, head facing outwards, and the fatal wound was at the back of the head. That means the killer attacked him from behind, with a blunt weapon. When a thief sees the homeowner returning, they would either stay hidden or retreat, to specifically attack and kill, and then leave empty-handed. How is that possible? Zhong Liangsha's clenched hands, completely relaxed at that moment. She never thought there would be so many flaws. Xu Qian continued, you have nothing to say, right? Zhong Xian has nothing to say either. So he betrayed you. He even said it was you, the shameless one, who seduced him, and that he didn't want to continue this affair, but you threatened him with the child in your belly. That night, you also killed Zhong Yurui in the chaos. Zhong Xian knew there were so many flaws, that escape was impossible. So he confessed to the county magistrate, willing to offer 500 taels of silver to smooth things over, and put all the blame on you, leaving you to bear the guilt of killing your husband. What kind of person is Zhong Xian? You know best, right? Zhong Liangsha couldn't help but panic a little. Xu Qian sighed inwardly. I don't know what kind of person Zhong Xian is. I just believe that this kind of relationship without love, just lust, is unreliable. Moreover, Zhong Xian is a rich second generation, with family assets and youth. A whole ocean awaits him. Why would he sacrifice himself for a woman? Xu Qian continued, the county magistrate is honest and righteous. He doesn't blindly believe Zhong Xian's one-sided story. He ordered me to question you. If you confess and are cooperative, the county magistrate promises to spare you the death penalty. Zhong Liangsha, as if seeing a lifeline, confessed without hesitation. Actually, Xu Qian lied to her. According to the Great Feng law, a woman who commits adultery or kills her husband is to be executed by slow slicing, and the adulterer will be beheaded and displayed. There is no way to avoid the death penalty, and seeing Zhong Liangsha's confession, Zhong Xian was caught off guard, no longer able to deny, and confessed in despair. Magistrate Xu, looking at the two confessions in his hand, cursed the two bastards repeatedly, but he didn't forget to praise Xu Qian. Xu Qian hurriedly bowed to decline, and flattered him in the process. It's all thanks to your guidance, sir, that I've learned some minor skills. Captain Wang, who was watching from the side, was a bit dumbfounded. This isn't right. When this kid first arrived, he was honest, stubborn, and only knew how to work hard. He was a real greenhorn. How did he become such a brilliant detective in the blink of an eye? What is the culture of brothels? Golan are houses of prostitution for common people, while Qinglu are a higher class, with wealthy merchants and high officials as clients. When talking about the culture of brothels in Da Feng, it's impossible to avoid the Jiaofangxi. The beauties in Jiaofangxi are all top-notch. Another distinct characteristic is that they are all family members of eunuchs. Xu Qian helped old Wang solve the case. He was so happy that he wanted to take Xu Qian to Golan. His colleagues around him smirked, watching Xu Qian. The chick was about to grow up. Unfortunately, old Wang didn't plan to treat them, but rather, they would pay for themselves. Xu Qian immediately lost interest. Furthermore, once having broken his body, Xu Qian could no longer reach the qi refining realm in this lifetime. So he put on a serious expression and said, I'm not that kind of person. But no one paid him any attention. Old Wang continued to boast. Fu Xiong is the top courtesan in Jiaofangxi. If she didn't already have a patron that night, I would have already gotten somewhere with her. Xu Qian immediately became interested. How much silver did that night cost? Old Wang held up 3 fingers. 30 taels? Xu Qian snatched the peanuts from a colleague next to him, and held them in front of old Wang and said, Chief, don't just drink. If you had some food, you wouldn't be this drunk. Xu Qian cursed inwardly. Are you kidding me? 30 taels can buy several young girls. You could make a mahjong table at home. You'd have to be sick in the head to go to Jiaofangxi to sleep with a courtesan. Not long after, Xu Qian went home alone. The first thing he did when he got home was write in his diary. He wasn't exactly an upright person anyway. Today is the year Gengzi, month Bingshu, day Jiawu, so that should be the year of the rat in modern times. October 18th in the Gregorian calendar. Second uncle is right. I need to change my way of living. In this dogshit society, climbing too high isn't necessarily a good thing. There were so many high officials in ancient times that got their families wiped out. What kind of people can have a comfortable life? I've done some research. It's the middle class. They're richer than ordinary people and aren't involved in high-level power struggles. They can lose a little sometimes, but they live the most comfortable lives. Also, I picked up a chain of silver at the market today, the 19th of the 10th month. Cloudy weather. I must have money. What's more reliable than silver in this world is gold. Even though merchants have no social status, there is always a trade-off. I plan to quit my job in a few days and not work as a constable at the Yamen anymore. 2 taels of silver a month is enough for 1 load of rice. When will I be able to go to Jiaofangxi and sleep with a courtesan? The 20th of the 10th month. Cloudy weather. I'm not in a rush to quit my job. I need to get my business up and running first. Today, I saw my colleagues using their warrant to blackmail merchants. I don't feel good about it, but I know it's the norm in this society. I can't change anything. Also, I picked up a chain of silver at the Yamen today, the 21st of the 10th month. Sunny weather. Today, Captain Wang took me to Golan. My impression of Golan has changed a bit. It's a place for listening to music and plays, as well as the fusion of body and soul. I am extremely melancholic. I'm still practicing my meridians and cannot break my body. Then, I picked up a chain of silver in Golan, which was just enough to pay for the music and food. Have I been lucky recently? The 22nd of the 10th month, listening to music in Golan. The 23rd of the 10th month, listening to music in Golan. The 24th of the 10th month, listening to music in Golan. Old Wang asked me why I was so happy. Because being a freeloader makes me happy. The 27th of the 10th month, listening to music in Golan. I didn't pick up any silver today. I had to pay myself. I'm never coming to this dirty place again. The 28th of the 10th month, this world has gunpowder. And flintlocks too. They also have soap berries. The effect is surprisingly good. That means my soap plan is gone. That's right, I can make glass. These ancient people must have never seen it before. The 29th of the 10th month. I didn't expect they also have glass. I need to find another way. Today I picked up second uncle's hidden stash at home. 1 chain of silver. The 30th of the 10th month. Listening to music in Golan. The 31st of the 10th month. I found another money-making plan today. That is to improve paper. If I can make better paper, I can make a lot of money every day, eat the best food, and sleep with the most beautiful courtesans. Let me think. The process of paper making is, I don't know anything about it. Today, I picked up a chain of silver at the market, the 3rd of the 11th month. These past few days I spent all my savings. I asked second uncle for money, but that poor guy has no money either. When Xu Xinyan heard about it, he first expressed his disdain, then he mocked me, and then he gave me 5 taels of silver. Without me, Xu Xinyan, this world would be forever dark. And I retorted like this. Xu Xinyan turned red in the face and left. Apart from being a bit of a harsh tongue and arrogant, this cousin of mine is actually not bad. Second brother, if it wasn't for the fact that we're sworn brothers, I would name you the female lead. The 5th of the 11th month. Today I went to the tea house to slack off with the constables at the Yamen. It was my first time listening to a storyteller. I suddenly thought, if I write down the martial arts novels from later generations, and the 4 great classical novels, I could make money while lying down. I'm so clever. Today I picked up another chain of silver. That's enough for money to go to Golan tomorrow. The 7th of the 11th month. I'm so freaking naive. A novel is hundreds of thousands or millions of words long. Can I write that with a brush? Although I can make charcoal pencils, I can't remember the content of the novels. It's been 10 days since I traveled through, and I've achieved nothing. I'm about to crack. This man has traveled through for 10 days, and has achieved nothing. At this moment, he truly understands the failure of modern exam-oriented education. He seems to know a little bit about everything, but he's stuck in a state of knowing just a little bit. He can't turn his knowledge into silver, but what's worse is not this. He's discovered that in this current world, corrupt officials are rampant. Even small-time corrupt people are considered good officials. Clean officials are even rarer than virgins in a brothel. The 9th of the 11th month, partly cloudy. Why hasn't Siwei from the observatory come looking for me yet? Does she not want to get the legendary alchemy secret techniques? That girl is no less beautiful than Lin Yu. She has an adorable and charming oval face. With my masterful skills in flirting, I could probably win her heart. I also want to find love in this cold society. Come find me soon. I don't want to work hard anymore. The 10th of the 11th month. I'm still not willing to give up on my novel plan. So I told my 2 younger sisters the general plot of Liang Shanhua and Xu Yingtai. After listening to it, Lin Yu's eyes turned red. But Lin Yin didn't cry. I punched him, and he cried. I think that's what he should expect at his age. The 11th of the 11th month. Today I drank with the Registrar Li. In my drunken stupor, he said that the consort of the prince of the northern town is the most beautiful woman of the dynasty. I asked him how beautiful she is exactly. He couldn't describe it because Registrar Li also heard it from the county magistrate. When I went home from work in the evening, I secretly asked second uncle, and his expression was very strange. He tried his best with his limited vocabulary to describe the beauty of the consort. I extracted the key elements. Big. This gave me a little bit of interest in the consort. And anticipation. The 12th of the 11th month. To this day, I've achieved nothing. I've let my country down. I've let all the other transmigrators down. The 13th of the 11th month. This is my first month in this world. And my salary has been paid. I'm planning to work hard. The business can wait. The 14th of the 11th month. Listening to music in Golan. In the small courtyard, Xu Qian stood under the eaves and casually threw a diamond-shaped hidden weapon. He didn't aim seriously at all, but he precisely hit the bullseye of the wooden stake 20 steps away. It's not because Xu Qian's technique of throwing hidden weapons was particularly skillful, but because he was lucky. For a whole month, he picked up a total of 1 tael and 2 qian of silver, which was equivalent to half a month's salary. This amount of money was enough for an average family of 3 to live frugally for 3 months. But what's strange was that he always picked up just 1 qian of silver each time. This can't be explained by luck alone. Without asking Yuan Feng, you would know that there's something strange about this. Xu Qian probed. System Dad, come out. Stop playing hide and seek with me. The system ignored him. In the past month, he had tried countless times to awaken the system. The reality told him that there wasn't a system at all. I never thought that an unlucky person like me, who had never won more than 5 yuan in the lottery, could one day evolve into an unlucky person. But the lifespan of a lucky person is very short. One thing is certain, the original owner did not have amazing luck. If he did, my aunt would not dislike him. She would treat him like an ancestor, and the whole family wouldn't have to work hard. They would just live off the money he picks up. This inexplicable gift of unknown origin is making me uneasy. Xu Qian gritted his teeth and sighed. I can only take things one step at a time. The small courtyard where Xu Qian lived was originally the residence of an old steward of the Xu family. It was separated from the Xu family mansion by just one wall. Later, after the old steward passed away, the small courtyard was left vacant. Later, after the original owner had a falling out with his aunt, he angrily moved here. Today was his day off. Xu Qian jumped over the 10-foot wall to go to second uncle's house for breakfast. It was mainly to save money. With that money, he could go to Golan to listen to music. Wouldn't that be great? Inside the main hall, the family was enjoying their breakfast. But suddenly, when his aunt saw Xu Qian enter, her good mood was instantly ruined. Xu Qian pretended not to notice and stared at his portion of breakfast. A martial artist in the qi refining realm has a much larger appetite than an ordinary person. This breakfast was only half enough. Xu Qian glanced at the little girl and said in a kind tone, "Little Lin Yin, can you share a meat bun with Big Brother?" Little girl immediately spread her arms, protecting her food like a mother hen protecting her chicks, and said fiercely, "No, don't be hasty. Big Brother won't let you lose out." Xu Qian picked up a meat bun and put it on her plate. Pointing at the 4 meat buns, he said, "My meat buns are put with you here. Then are all 4 of these meat buns ours?" Xu Lingyan nodded her head. Xu Qian continued to tempt her. "Then shouldn't we share them equally?" The little girl's CPU processed it at high speed for a moment, and then nodded decisively. Xu Qian's cunning plan had succeeded. He pressed his advantage. "You get 2 buns, and Big Brother gets 2 buns, and then Big Brother will give you half a youtiao. Didn't you profit?" Aunt shook her head. "How could I give birth to such a stupid daughter? You are going to make this old lady angry." At this moment, Xu Xinyan walked in staggering. Xu family's second son, Xu Xinyan, tried to commit suicide, and became famous because he failed to hang himself, and even reached the peak of his life because of the line, "My lord, I have no family." Xu Xinyan was walking the path of Confucian cultivation. Yunlu Academy was founded by the greatest disciple of the Confucian sage. It has a history of 1,200 years and is a sacred place that all scholars in the world dream of entering. Yunlu Academy's transcendent status isn't just because the founder was a disciple of the sage, but most importantly, it is the only remaining academy where one can cultivate the Confucian path. Xu Xinyan's awakening actually belongs to the 9th rank in the Confucian system. It increases memory, allows one to read 10 lines at a time, and strengthens the ability to learn, but is still a weakling. In the past few days, he's been working on closed-door tasks with no results, and has now become a soulless puppet. His strength is in strategy, and poetry is his weakness. Aunt was distressed. Why write poetry for nothing? Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, so don't pay attention to other people's rumors. Shu Qian suddenly asked, Cgio, when will you break through and reach the 8th level cultivation stage of self-cultivation? Shu Xinyan regretfully shook his head. I have no idea at the moment. My teacher said I need to find myself. Shu Qian said, can you use the awakening stage as a reference? How did one cultivate to the awakening stage? Shu Xinyan recalled, to recite the classics of the sage backwards, and apply it to oneself, then one would be in the awakening stage. The former needs to spend a lot of time on memorizing, and the latter relies on a certain degree of comprehension. Shu Qian was speechless. This was the same as the qi refining stage in the martial arts system, which is a long and arduous process of refining qi and blood. Shu Qian asked, then the self-cultivation stage, does that also require refining the body? Shu Xinyan pondered for a moment. Self-cultivation requires cultivating the mind, to have no fear in one's heart, to make one's every action convincing. I'm trying to deduce the cultivation method from the abilities manifested in self-cultivation, but I'm still trying. Has it been successful? Shu Xinyan was silent. He was a little annoyed with this older brother now, but Shu Qian still had a curious look on his face. Waiting for an answer, Shu Xinyan pretended not to see and turned to his mother to say, an elder in the academy has run into some trouble. He has to go to Qingju. It is a long journey, and the students at the academy will send him off tomorrow. Speaking of which, Shu Xinyan said with worry, I haven't written a farewell poem yet. Shu Lingyu said softly, second brother is not talented in poetry. Aunt glared at him, and said displeased, your second brother is full of talent. He just didn't put his heart into the path of poetry before. Shu Pingxi said, resting his cheek in his hand, just write a few lines. I think that line you blurted out that day was very powerful. Shu Xinyan coughed twice, and awkwardly changed the topic. That elder is a great scholar famous throughout the world, who is extremely skilled in poetry. Those who are seeing him off are all scholars with poetic talents. Besides the respect for the elder, there is also the intention of building connections. If they can be appreciated by the senior, it would be greatly beneficial. Shu Xinyan is arrogant, always saying, the friendship between gentlemen is as light as water, and gentlemen are friendly but don't form factions. After experiencing this crisis, he finally realized the benefits of making deals. Shu Qian was very gratified as the eldest brother. Shu Pingxi said inappropriately, your maternal grandfather was also like you, only good at writing articles, but no poetic talent. Aunt was unconvinced. What do you mean? Is it my father's fault? Xinyan can pass the provincial exam. It's all thanks to the Li family, because he takes after me. Look at Lin Yin, who takes after you and still hasn't been enlightened. Shu's second uncle was left speechless. Shu Qian was unconvinced by Aunt. What you're saying is that our Shu family has bad genes. Aunt instinctively retorted, if you had any potential in academics, you wouldn't have gone to study martial arts. You can't even write your words properly. Shu Qian pondered. Never mind Aunt for now, but with Shu Erlang's bad temper, if he is already thinking of actively making connections, then that senior of the academy should not be of low status. Erlang's connections are my connections, and my connections are still my connections. I have to help him, soon. He had an idea in mind. He focused on one poem, writing poetry. Right? Today, I will show Aunt that we in the Shu family are all talented. Second uncle was a bit embarrassed. You're just reciting the poems of scholars. Let's not get involved. Shu Qian ignored him, and said calmly, thousands of miles of yellow clouds darken the white sun. Everyone was shocked. The north wind blows wild geese in a blizzard. Shu Xinyan was stunned.